I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So I declared international relations thinking it was a good pre-law thing. And then, I did all the poli-sci and econ. And then in late 91 or even early 92, I fell in love with the internet.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started.
20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Secret Chord Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo,
and in media partnership with Tate.
Hello and welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. I'm with Kevin Tate from Clearbit, where he helps Clearbit to reach B2B companies that are trying to better understand their customers and optimize their digital funnel. He has over 20 years of leadership experience in sales, marketing, and product, and deep expertise in enterprise SaaS, e-commerce, digital marketing, social media, and IoT. Prior to joining Clearbit, Kevin held executive roles at SurveyMonkey, Chirpify, and ShopIgniter.
I'm really excited to have you here all the way from Portland, right?
That's right, Portland, Oregon, where it's now rainy and cold, which is on brand for us this time of year. So we knew what we were getting into.
Well, we just had our first rainy day in Tel Aviv, so seasons are shifting. Today, you're a chief marketing officer at Clearbit, but you've held a variety of really incredible positions. Favorite one for me, well, two favorite ones for me. First, the favorite one is that you were at Stanford in 1991 doing international relations, which is probably like the best thing to do there. Today, maybe it's engineering, but back then, IR is amazing there. And then, obviously, your role within SurveyMonkey, which is a company that I've loved since, like my middle school years. So a lot of the things for us to talk about today, marketing, from a roles perspective, from a marketing revenue perspective, and the way the data plays into all of it. And so let's see what we can get in 20 short minutes and at least spark some curiosity. But Kevin, walk me through international relations marketing, sort of this connect the dots for me.
Yeah, those are some funny ones to connect. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So I declared international relations thinking it was a good pre-law thing. And then, I did all the poli-sci and econ. And then in late 91 or even early 92, I fell in love with the internet. And, this was right before web browsers were around. It was a lot of like Gopher and Waze and FTP. But there was information out there that was trying to get out, and the sort of the democratization of access to information. And I fell in love with the technology and what it could mean for society and for business. And so I ended up graduating with IR and focus on econ, but really spent my time learning basic Unix programming and getting into the internet. And so when I had the chance to start working on the web in early 96, I jumped over there. And so really the rest of my career has been largely internet software and services. How do you put data to work in particular to help companies grow and help markets improve? I mean, I think that's so much the promise of data and its application is how do you make things work better and create better outcomes?
Amazing. So you've seen a lot throughout your different marketing roles, and I'd love to hear your perspective a little bit on how that's been shifting over the last couple of decades, and where are we at today in terms of what marketing really is about, or if we're looking at the most strategic way to think about marketing from your perspective, what seismic shifts are we seeing here, and what do you expect for the marketing role to take place?
Whew, there's a lot there. I have to bust out the crystal ball. I think it's fun. I've worked a little more in marketing than sales, but almost half and half in my career. And I think that, it's an interesting perspective because you end up working on both sides of this go-to-market coin. And when I've had both roles, it's me arguing with me over, what's a quality lead and what are reasonable funnel metrics and what should the goals be. And so, to your question around, how do you think about that strategically, and how do you look at marketing from that perspective? What I like to do is look at the role of marketing, not just as, lead gen, or how do I get people's attention and try to, jam them through the funnel, but really marketing as market development, which starts with what market are we in? What market do we want to be in? And then as we look to develop that market, how do we think about things that, today we talk about in terms of ideal customer profile? How do we think about segments and beachheads? How do we think about the strategic high ground in those markets and the cost of acquiring customers and retaining and growing customers in those markets? All those things fit together, and you can think of, 10 different acronyms that you put in those different buckets. But if you look at it, I like to look at it through a lens of, how am I going to develop this market over time in a way that my company can create value for that market and capture value for that market? And if I'm doing that right, if the exchange is correct there, then I should be successful. But a lot of times these markets are emerging and your company is emerging, and you don't know what's easy versus what's hard. You sometimes don't know where the softer dirt is. So a lot of hypothesis forming and testing is pretty key to testing and tuning that market development as you go along.
Wow. Okay. And so if we're looking at the way that marketing is played today, and we're extrapolating a little bit now towards the next few years, if we're looking at people that are thinking about marketing landscape, or to young marketers, or they're excited about the space and the challenges that you just presented, how do you think people should transition to think more strategically to accompany to all the changes that you just said?
So I think part of it is frankly the goals you set and the way you frame the role of marketing and how it should be measured in the organization. So to pick obvious ends of the spectrum, if you say, hey, I want to be measured on leads, and I want to be measured on, how many people come to the website, then that's where you'll find your marketing attention and budget, and it goes, right? So, all right, ultimately it's about the funnel. A step up from that is, I want to be measured on how much revenue we generate, right? And now you're partnering with sales around pipeline and opportunity creation and ultimately closed won deals. I think that's a more strategic position, and one that, gets you at a table that's about revenue, not just funnel. But even a step further is the company's strategic position in the market. And if you at least make sure that at least some of the goals that you're setting and that you're talking to your e-staff about are about your position and share and development of those markets, now you're going to find that you're in a much broader set of conversations, right? That's the stuff the board wants to talk about, right? That's the stuff that the C-suite wants to talk about. So some of it is just sort of, setting your place at the table, if you will, with what some of those goals are. I do think, to your question about, what does that mean today and how's it changing? We're obviously in pretty different times than we were even 6 months ago, right? And so a lot of especially B2B software companies are trying to figure out of what was working then, what's still working now, what's really changed versus what are we not sure if it's changed yet or not, and how do I think about my ideal customers differently? How do I think about my buyers differently? And that's a pretty broad landscape. Yeah. But to bring it back to those sets of goals and sort of how you set the table, I think a marketing team is going to be in a much better position to work with their executive team and to work with their other go-to-market leaders to navigate that if they build a landscape for themselves that includes the strategy, the revenue, and the funnel. And it's not just about, hey, the funnel's broken, how are you going to fix it?
Completely.
Because that's a little bit of a narrow view.
I love that. And I love the expansion from a strategic point of view of how you see marketing as not just a lead generation, but how the strategic part of what it means to affect markets, to funnel back information, to lead to revenue, and to create many more meaningful interactions and decisions within the company. Let's talk about data. You've spent so much of your career dealing with data, and obviously today with Clearbit and a lot of the other experiences that we mentioned, reading out your bio earlier to the audience. Let's talk a little bit about the way that data is being used today and from a marketing perspective in your line of work.
Yeah, sure. So I can talk about it from a Clearbit perspective, because we certainly use data a lot in how we go to market. But then also that's what Clearbit does, right? Yeah. So Clearbit provides companies with data about all the companies in their market, and then helps them put that data to work, figuring out sort of who and how and when to best engage their prospects. And it won't surprise you to hear that Clearbit uses Clearbit a lot in how we go to market too. So I think if you look at the role of data, and especially over the last couple of years, how it can be very cost effectively applied. And I say it that way because there are things that used to be possible, but just take a team of data scientists and data warehouses and operational data stores and all the things to try to get to some of these answers. And now they're almost on tap. I mean, you can get these answers and put them to work. But I would put them in the three buckets I mentioned earlier. Who do you want to engage? How are you going to engage them in a way that's relevant? And then when? Like, when do you spend the time and money, whether that's ad dollars or marketing budget or sales outreach effort? When do you spend it to companies and buyers who are in market, who are showing intent, who are interested? And that triumvirate, sort of who, how, and when, I think is the recipe for a much more effective go-to-market. And data underpins all of those.
How much of this is general versus fine-tuned for different companies' approaches? This broader question of using data for go-to-market, how do we tailor that to different industries, different verticals, different use cases?
It's a really good question. So I think, some of it is general, and then I think the application of it gets very specific. So some of the general things. So I think any B2B company, probably even B2C, but we mostly work B2B, needs an ideal customer profile. You need a way of describing for whom is my solution a good fit, and how do I recognize them? And that recognizing part's important, right? Because it might be based on how many employees they have, or what country they're based in, or what industry segment they're in. But it also might be, who do they use as their payments processor? Or who do they have as their CRM or their marketing automation system? Or what combination of solutions are they using that tell me I'm a good fit to make that stack better? So ICP can be a lot more than just sort of a demographic and firmographic information. But I think every company needs a workable, a useful ICP definition. I think they also need some workable view, useful view of buyer personas. And I say useful because I think there's a lot to be said about sort of the buyer persona project that takes 6 months and then gets put on a shelf and maybe never used. But I find the most useful piece is being able to understand your key buyers and their jobs to be done. I love the jobs to be done framework. And
it's an amazing one.
What are they trying to do, and how can you really help them accomplish those jobs to be done in a way that's valuable and differentiated? That's often really, really key to get right around that product market fit. You got to have an ICP, and you got to have a view of your buyer's jobs to be done. I think that's general. What changes a lot by company and by sector, I think, is how you put that and the associated data to work in your go-to-market. And maybe one of the most important distinctions to make is, what is your go-to-market motion? And obviously that's a spectrum, but to sort of turn up the contrast, if you are selling a 6 or 7 figure software product with expensive enterprise sales reps to Fortune 2000 companies, then the way you use that data to construct what's probably an account-based strategy, and then tailor your outreach company by company, even buyer by buyer, is going to be different than if you take, say, a high volume or product-led growth approach, where you're trying to start conversations with tens of thousands of companies a quarter, maybe even a month, and you're trying to figure out how to sort of shepherd them through an education and buying process by the hundreds or thousands. Your challenge is much more like a sort of signal to noise. Like, how do I read signals to apply efforts as a portfolio to my funnel versus how do I get this one person to pay attention to me? And so those are two go-to-market motions, both of which really benefit from data applied to the ICP and their buyer personas. But the way you apply it and the tactics that you employ are going to be really different based on those motions.
I want to circle back really quick to the idea of ICP, the ideal customer profile for non-marketers over the last few minutes. Can you give me a bit of a better understanding as to, well, what does this actually mean? What goes into this type of persona, and how do I, as somebody who's not coming from the space, but still I need to be able to understand this and have coherent conversations about this? What are really, over after 24 years in the industry, what are your insights to really capturing this?
I think ideal customer profile, or ICP, is a powerful concept because it acts as such a focusing lens on everything you do. And to be clear, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it also changes. But to give you an example, if you're starting a company or entering a new market, a common thing to do is say, okay, what's my TAM? What's my total addressable market? So, okay, I want every company from North America and Europe and maybe other places, and I want to have this many employees. And so you come up with this massive, massive number. And you say, oh, there's, 300,000 companies, and it's an $8 billion market. And that's helpful when you're trying to, show that there's enough opportunity out there. But it's not a very useful lens through which to ask, am I talking to the right person? Am I focused on the right type of company with my valuable marketing dollars? And for that, you need a definition that's almost at the opposite end of the spectrum. If you could talk to anyone in this, imaginary room of 100 companies, who would you go talk to first? Because you're most confident that what you have to offer is something they're going to value and be in a position to buy. And then through that lens, it's not these big general things. It's back to, the things I mentioned before, like, well, maybe it really depends what payment processor they're using. Or maybe it really depends what size they are and what type of bookkeeping software they're currently using and what integration they have to Salesforce. Right? Suddenly this mix of what stage they're in, what technologies they use, and how your solution fits tells you a lot more about how likely they are to be your ideal customer. And then there's a lot of things in between. But for our Clearbit go-to-market, we use our ICP definition, which includes things like, technology and size and lookers. We look at our whole funnel through that. So when we talk about engaged companies or companies in our funnel or new opportunities, it's always through this ICP lens, and it helps us know and understand the quality of our engagement, not just the quantity.
That's really, really cool. Over the last few minutes, what I always love doing is understanding, why do you do what you do? Why do you, obviously, having spent so much time in the space, you really do enjoy it and you grow with it. Tell me a little bit about what's the satisfaction that you get from your roles, from the journeys that you're on.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in early and growth stage companies in emerging markets. And, it can be frustrating because you're trying to figure so much out, right? The market's trying to figure out exactly how technology and business are fitting together in a new way. The companies are often trying to figure out, either how to initially go to market or how to scale once they've got product market fit. But I'll tell you, it's that figuring out part that I really like. I really like the trying to solve that puzzle and all the little mini puzzles along the way, right? From market entry strategy to product market fit to scale to new market entry. And it means you have to revisit a lot of assumptions and refigure out things based on shifting landscapes like we have this year. But for me, that's what keeps it interesting and keeps it different and challenging.
I love that, Kevin. I really want to thank you for your time. I love the way that you're looking at marketing, not just from your particular role and the ways that you need to be serving and supporting the different organizations that you're with, but you're really intentionally thinking about the way that this industry is shifting and the role of the marketers, not just for lead generation, but focusing also on revenue and strategy for the company, talking about the way the data is played within organizations. We got to chat a little bit about the ideal customer profile and what goes into that, and what really was resonating throughout the whole show is how much respect Clearbit gives its own product and its own thinking process, which obviously is a huge testament to an amazing company. And so I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for being here. Best of luck with Clearbit and everything else that you're doing, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, sir. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.